Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley. Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms to homeschool an outside-the-box child. Hey there, I'm Cindy Renna, and this is episode 12. Today we actually kick off the second season. I guess the only big difference in it being the second season instead of the first is I am going to transition this thing from strictly an audio blog to more of a conversational podcast and one that includes guests as well. So the first guest is actually going to be on the show the 29th. So that's the last Tuesday of this month. I'm so excited. We're going to have a friend of mine on who was a Charlotte Mason teacher in a Charlotte Mason school, and now she's transitioned to homeschooling. So we're going to talk about kind of the differences and what's the same, what's different, what we can gain from her wisdom. So I am going to continue doing the posts that I put up on the blog as an audio option. I know a lot of moms are busy just like me. I started this thing because I know you don't have time to sit down and read blog posts a lot of the time. So I love to have that audio option available for you. So I am going to continue to do that. But I wanted to offer you a little bit more too. So I'm going to try to line up some of my favorite people for this year, but I'd love to hear from you and see who your favorite people are. Who would you love to hear on Homeschooling Outside the Box? Please let me know. You can email me at cindyrenna@cindyrenna.com, or you can touch base with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to find out who you want to hear from on the show. All that being said, this episode is actually a spinoff of the blog post I put up about New Year's goals. So let's talk about goal setting for the homeschool mom. I know we're kind of midway into January, so the new is worn off on resolutions and goals. I think now is the perfect time to talk about goals because they're not something you do just on January 1st and then they kind of fizzle out and you forget about it. You've got to be really intentional about it. So now's about the time where people have kind of given up on their resolutions. I would challenge you that now is the best time to set some real goals for the new year. I've always been a pretty nostalgic person. I've always loved New Year's. I like to look at life as a big story, and I really enjoy the whole looking back on the past year and dreaming forward into the next year. So when I think about where we were a year ago at this time, it's a pretty big difference. If you don't know our story, last January we were in Michigan. We had moved there to be close to family. We live in Alabama right now, which is where we spent the better part of the last 10 years. But, we wanted to be close to family. So my husband changed to a completely different job. And we just gave it a shot and we dropped everything and moved. So we could have our kids grow up around their cousins and be with grandparents and all that. And that part of it was wonderful. But my husband's job definitely was not what we had thought it was going to be. And long story short, by January, we were literally at the end of our rope. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know he needed a new job, and we didn't know how that was going to happen. So through a series of circumstances, God really gave us a George Bailey experience to see, this is what it would have been like if you guys would have lived in Michigan. And again, the friends and family part was wonderful. We had some really precious time, made some great memories. We really grew spiritually, like that tends to happen when you are at the bottom of your barrel. We were stretched beyond what we thought was possible. And by April, we were back in Alabama. So it's pretty incredible to see what God did in those 365 days. If you would have asked me last January if we would be back in Alabama, there's no way I would have been able to predict this. To honor the cliche, hindsight really is 2020. Now I can look back and see how God moved in many ways. I can understand the reasons behind certain struggles that we had, and I can see the silver lining. But I could not when we were in, as they say in Alabama, in the weeds. We were definitely in the weeds when we were in Michigan last year. So when we were in the midst of the storm and the chaos, I couldn't see what was going on. And just like I couldn't see it while I was in it, I can't for the life of me predict the future either. So I know this year is, God willing, not going to include any out-of-state moves, but I know there's still going to be ups and downs. And so when you sit down to goal set, when believers sit down to set goals, you're partnering with God. So you're jumping in, raising our hands, we're standing at attention saying, I'm here, I'm available, I'm ready. It would be a really big mistake to think that what we're doing is saying, okay, Lord, here's what I need to happen this year. So goal setting starts with attitude, and prayer is super important when it comes to goal setting because you're not God. You don't know what he's going to do in the next 365 days. And the best testimony to that is looking back over your last 365 days and saying, man, I couldn't have called that. So that's definitely the situation that my family was in. Pretty incredible. So anyway, as that applies to goal setting, my husband and I have made it a habit to sit down together somewhere around January 1st and discuss our goals for the upcoming year. Let me clarify. When I say me and my husband, this is me dragging him into a situation that he probably wouldn't choose for himself. This meeting has in the past always failed miserably, but it failed because my expectations were too high. I'm a super goal-driven person. I love doing this stuff. I get a big kick out of it. Lee is not, and I'm always flabbergasted when he doesn't magically become one at these meetings. So as important as I think these meetings are, I really needed a change of perspective this year. The meetings had failed in the past because I would drag him out to a public place to discuss private matters, usually a super crowded bookstore, right in the midst of the holiday season. You can see where this is a terrible idea, and it never occurred to me that was a terrible idea. So again, ultimately forcing him into a situation he might not otherwise be inclined to participate in. And then it also failed because instead of me coming with an open mind and a few key topics that I wanted to go over, I would come with the whole year in a nutshell and just want him to be super engaged with every detail and then just ultimately agree with all of my great ideas. So this year, I really feel like I gained some perspective, or I grew enough last year to know, okay, we've got to play this a little bit differently. This year, the meeting was a success. It was a total success. I went into it recognizing that as much as he loves and values our family, this is my thing. I'm the one who loves to chart our course. And Lee's strength is steering the ship. It was a success because I skimmed over what I'd written down and asked him which areas he wanted to chime in on instead of needing his opinion on every minute detail. For instance, does he really care if I keep up a 1 coffee to 2 water ratio every day? Probably not, and that's fine. I don't really need his backing on that. So it was a success because instead of a busy bookstore during the holiday season, I poured a couple glasses of wine. We hung out in a quiet room at home while the kids watched a movie in the other room. And it was a success because at the end of the meeting, we laid all of our goals down, prayed over them, recognizing that we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. So goal setting ultimately is a matter of good stewardship. God is sovereign, but we're responsible for our time here. We're all on the clock, and goal setting asks the question, how are you spending your working hours? Is he going to catch you scrolling through Facebook, or are you really pushing into your giftedness, using the talents that he gave you, and doing what you're supposed to be doing while you're walking around on this earth? As a homeschool mom, it can feel like educating your children is your only job. I know for me, I feel like it could very easily, between homeschooling and therapy, that could consume me right there. Motherhood itself is a full-time job, but when you add in the extras of needing therapy and homeschooling your kids, that's a much fuller full-time job, if you will. Sorry if I sounded a little distracted there, and if you could hear the knocking in the background, that's because Gracie is not always a fan of my recording times, so she was trying to get my attention, banging on the door. So anyway, moving on. Motherhood is full-time, but it's not full you. So in fact, if you allow it to become all of you, you'll have nothing to pour out for your children. So goal setting is very much a way to take on the responsibility of shaping your family culture, your marriage, your children, and yourself. It helps for me if I break this down into categories. I became a believer later, when I was an adult. I wasn't really raised with the mindset of who I was, from a faith-based perspective. And I've always, to be honest, I've struggled with that. Who am I? What does that mean? Am I just a wife? Am I just a mom? Like, who am I with nothing else? So for me, when I break it down into categories, it's easy for me to see, okay, marriage is one part of who I am. Motherhood is one part of who I am. But then there's just who I am as a person without any of that, who I was before marriage. And I know to become one and all that. I'm not minimalizing that. I'm just saying it's very important that you keep growing as a person, because that benefits your marriage and your children. I'd like to put these in a priority as a reminder that if I'm strong in one, it will trickle down and benefit the other ones. So the stronger you are spiritually, the better your marriage is going to be. And the better your marriage, the better your mothering. Better your mothering, the better your homeschool, and so on. So all of these kind of trickle down into each other, and none of them can exist without each other because they comprise who you are. So with my goals and categories, I can see where I'm uneven, if I'm lacking in areas that need growth. I know it's probably a bad thing if I've got like 15 goals as a mother and one as a wife. That's kind of a red flag for me that I'm putting too much energy into one area of my life. Which there's 4 kids and they're young. I get it. We're in a season, so that's going to look different. I'm not going to say you're always going to have more goals as a wife, but the point is you should be focusing, I guess, on strengthening your marriage even more than your motherhood, even though motherhood is much more demanding. So it shows me where God's working in my life. And it helps me just ever so slightly get a glimpse into the future. I can kind of see, maybe this year, I can see we're really going to be spending a lot of time in this area. So if you're so inclined, set your own goals. You can use mine as a template, but remember that the examples are just that. They are just examples to inspire you, not to compare yourself to. And by all means, after you come up with some goals for the year, I highly encourage you to have a sit down with the hubby. Just remember, leave your expectations at the door, keep an open mind, and don't forget the wine. All right, so my goals for 2019, I'm just going to run through them for you. These are not all of them. I just sort of put one for each category to give you an idea. But I do pick a family focus word to talk to the family about. We have family meetings every Sunday. That's a really, if you guys don't, maybe that should be a family goal. That's been a really, really good thing for us. It started, a few years ago, and it was just chaos. The first, probably 2 years. The kids were young. They weren't engaged. Nobody knew what was happening. But we were diligent in doing it, and now it's become a thing and a safe place where people can bring up things they want to talk about. any concerns they have, even through the week. If there's complaints, I'll say, you should bring that up Sunday at the family meeting. And they're real simple. We just, after we do it at lunch usually. We like to gather when we're already gathered. So we do a lot of table discussions and meetings and things like that. So when we sit down for lunch on Sunday, I just bring the big calendar over. We go over what we're going to do that week, who's got soccer practice, who's got play practice, which parent's taking who where. And it's just a really good snapshot of, okay, this is what our week looks like. And then we do open mic, and if there's anything people want to discuss, which is like 99% of the time dealing with screen time and trying to get more of it, and then us having to say, no, you're not getting more of it. So we're slightly moving to the Democratic side, just so slightly. Our oldest kids are almost 12, so we're trying to teach them how to, bring things up and discuss and things like that. But so we do open mic, and then we take prayer requests, and Lee closes it in prayer, and we just pray over our week. And it's just a really excellent way for us to start the week, even if it only lasts 7 minutes, or if it's quick, or even if half the time people are spinning in circles and not totally engaged. It has become this benchmark in our week that's been really good. So I say all that to say that I come up with a family focus word, and then at our family meeting, I bring it up and kind of get everybody's opinion on it. So our word for this year is contentment. That's where I really feel like God's needing us to focus. So I pick a verse to go with our family focus word. So this year it's Philippians 4:12 through 13. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So that is our verse. Then I go over how old everybody's going to be. I'm not going to share those ages with you guys because it's way closer to 40 than 30. So that's all you need to know. But it kind of gives me it's sobering, to think, wow, the twins are going to be 12. Owen's going to be 11. Gracie's going to be 6. And just it's a snapshot of what our lives are going to look like this year. We are totally out of the baby stage. We are totally out of the preschool years as of fall. Like, we're definitely into the middle school year. So it's really good to kind of look at it big picture like that. And then I set some personal goals. So I have 2 categories within this category: spiritual goals and health. So for instance, a spiritual goal I have this year is to join a small group. We just moved back in April. We've gotten back to church. We're plugged back in, and I still haven't joined a small group of women. I think that's an important thing. So I'm working towards that. And then for health, I already shared with you my 1 cup of coffee to 2 cups of water ratio. I'm trying to stay on track with that because I could definitely just spend the whole day drinking coffee. All right. A marriage goal I set was for Lee and I to take a trip, just us. A motherhood goal, these 2 could actually work together, is to attend the Sunrise Maximum Impact training in April. So if I go with Lee, then that would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because that would be a trip that just we take together. I talked about Sunrise on the 2nd episode of the podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, tune into that. But that's the therapy. That's the predominant therapy that we do for autism in our home. We also do biomedical. We do some core exercises from Brain Balance. But our main therapy is the Sunrise program. And we've been at it for about 4 years. You throw 2 out-of-state moves in there, that's lots of disruption. So we really want to recommit this year to just working hard at our program. We've seen great things doing it kind of willy-nilly and not pushing it as hard as we could. So we're really excited at the thought of really pouring into it this year and seeing how much more we can get out of it. So the startup is the first training. You go out there to Massachusetts. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You have to look at that post and find out more about it. But it's a week-long training just for the parent. And it's really like a retreat because you're in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful. They feed you. And I have celiac disease. So if somebody can feed me and I don't get sick, that's like that's incredible for me. That's a really big deal. So they feed you, they're allergy friendly, and then you're just refreshed and equipped, and you come home and you just feel ready. So that is that's the initial training to kind of crash course. What is this therapy about? So then you go and you can dig deeper and do maximum impact, and that really focuses kind of on your attitude, and you really dig into what's working with your program, what's not, how do we get it to work better, and all that. So if Lee and I go together, I just feel like that's going to be kind of a powerhouse experience, and we'd get to take a trip, just us. I'm real big with checking off my lists and highlighting, so that would make me so excited to check off both of those. There's my crickets. That means Lee's supposed to start bedtime with the kids. Sorry about that. Okay, next goal is home. So my goal for our home is to plant a garden. Like I said, we just got here in April. In Alabama, you're halfway through the growing season. Like, you've missed it. So did not get to have a garden last year. I was really bummed about that. So I would like to do one this year. A homeschool goal I have is just to stick with our daily routine. We've been doing it long enough to where I know what works for us. I know what doesn't work for us. It's just about not letting so many extras slip into our day and really sticking with the routine that I know works. So that's that. And then little Miss in fall will actually start her actual with Charlotte Mason homeschooling. You really don't start until they're about 6, and so she'll be ready. So we'll start homeschooling her. So I will be full-blown homeschooling 4 instead of 3. So that should be exciting. I set a goal as a writer I'm working on a book list for the Well-Read Mom. If you look in my shop, I've put some of the book lists up there. I've got book lists for the well-read preschooler. I've got 1st through 3rd year, and then 4th through 6th year. I've also got around the year book lists. So those are more seasonal themed, coming up. Like right now, there's a bunch of books you could read in the winter, and then soon there's going to be books you can read for Valentine's Day. So I want to focus on the moms, because I mentioned it a little bit earlier. You really, if you have nothing to pour out, you can't pour anything out. I know that sounds redundant, but if you're waking up, rolling out of bed, drinking a cup of coffee, and then it's boom, right to breakfast, it's not going to work. I used to say when the boys were like 3, 3, and 2, or 4, 4, and 3, I mean, those really difficult dependent years, if they woke up before me, it was pretty much the same thing as getting hit by a Mack truck. It took me hours to recover. Like I had to be up and ready before them. And when I got up, I had to, have some music, maybe a candle playing, or music playing, a candle lit. I had to have my coffee. I had to read my, whatever I was reading in the Bible, whatever. I usually have like a devotional of some sort going, my journal in the morning. I do like a prayer journal. And then I always make sure to include a book that challenges me mentally. Right now I'm reading through Charlotte Mason's 6th volume, Philosophy of Education. Boy, that is all meat, no potatoes. Like that, I mean, it's a heavy read. It feels like every page I'm underlining stuff and putting it in my copybook. I don't know why I'm at commonplace book. I could not think of that word. Sorry. I'm underlining things to put in my commonplace book. It's so chock full of good wisdom. So I always try to put a book like that in my morning time to really stimulate my mind, wake me up, get me thinking, deep thoughts. So, twaddle doesn't start my day. So that's really good. I like to read a lot of Sally Clarkson's books in the morning too, like The Life-Giving Home, The Life-Giving Table. Right now I'm reading The Life-Giving Parent, which is actually by her husband Clay, but she chimes in quite a bit. But books like those that are going to affect my day. So it just got me thinking this year. I've talked to quite a few moms who don't have a reading list. They're just kind of reading what their kids are reading in homeschool, or if they do, it's kind of lighter reading. And I want to challenge you to really focus on educating yourself, and filling yourself up so that you have something to pour out. So that's my writing goal for this year, is to put together a book list for the well-read mom. So I will definitely let you know when that goal is achieved and that list is available. And then the last category is friend, family, church. That's kind of a catch-all. So it's almost like, who are you socially, I guess, would be the category for that. So we've got tons of family and friends in Michigan, and I like to be intentional about keeping in touch with them. And then I feel like I'm at a point where the kids are doing okay at church. I can kind of drop everybody off, and there's no pandemonium like there was for so many years. We've got a really good system with the twins. Benjamin still really needs a buddy to be with him, which is an adult that kind of is his friend in the classroom in case he kind of has a difficult day or needs to go for a walk or needs help calming down, whatever. And we are blessed that we have that person, and it's not us anymore. For the longest time, it was us, and we were just burning at both ends. But we've had some really amazing people step up and say, I'll sit with them for 2 hours on a Sunday. So that's been amazing to be able to just go to church and drop the kids off. That's been like, that took years for that to happen, seriously. So now that it's happened, I realize, oh my goodness, I could, help out in another way. I could be available to do something else. So I don't know, maybe I'll be a greeter or something. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm just still so excited that we just drop the kids off and go to church, and it's just like a normal day. So I know you moms with outside the box kids can relate to that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, those are some of my goals personally. I would love to hear from you if you set goals, if you just kind of focus on one goal, or what your thoughts are on the category thing, and if you kind of set multiple goals, and then how you keep up with them. Because I usually will print mine out, stick it in my planner. I still have a paper planner. I'm like paper, pen, highlighter. That's my deal forever and ever. I cannot handle the phone scheduling thing. But I will print it out so it's right there and I can see it frequently. I reference it frequently. I kind of look over it on Sundays and see, okay, have I completed that project? Have I worked towards that goal? Do I have a plan for getting a garden in? That's not just going to happen. So then I sort of structure my weeks around some of the big goals that I've set so they can actually happen. So it's really important to break down your big goals into manageable pieces. I feel like a lot of what I learned about goal setting has come from autism and the IEP meetings, something good did come from them. So anyway, that's my take on goals and the new year, the importance of setting New Year's goals. And you can do this anytime. It doesn't have to be the New Year's, but everybody's just in the mood to set goals this, it seems in January. So I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you are going to set any goals and what those are. Also make sure and let me know if one of your goals is to hear a certain somebody speak on a certain somebody's podcast, and I'll see if I can make that happen as well. All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode of Homeschooling Outside the Box. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.